Welcome back to Bern Speak Easy. This is the place where conversations flow as freely as ideas. I'm your host, Amrit Maan, and today we're joined by a truly remarkable, exceptional, amazing guest, and that's my good friend, family friend, Professor Dhillon. Welcome to Bern Speak Easy. How
Thank
are
you.
you?
I'm very well, thank you. And don't use such expletives. But anyway, very kind words, somebody. Thank you.
You're welcome to Covent Garden here at this podcast. So you're not just an ENT surgeon, that's an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. You're a bit of a pioneer in medical education. You're a co-founder of an amazing art gallery here in Soho. You're a public health advocate. And now you're a bit of a wellness entrepreneur with your special honey. You've brought medical education to frontline doctors in war zones. You've raised national awareness about sleep apnea, and somehow you found the time to found the Zari Gallery along with your wife in Soho, and now you've just set up a business selling Manuka honey. It's incredible. So in short, I see you, Professor Dhillon, someone who sees no boundaries between science, culture, healing, and enterprise. So pour yourself something good. This is going to be a great conversation worth sipping. I've got my cup of tea. So have you. So have you. And so you know what? The question here is this: what does sleep apnea, art, and honey have in common? And more than you think. And on this episode of Bern Speak Easy, Professor Dhillon shares how he's redefined the role of a doctor through medicine, business, and just pure human curiosity. So you've had such a unique path, Professor Ram, surgeon, entrepreneur, educator, gallery founder. Where did your appetite for innovation begin?
I really don't know. It's always been like that. Originally, our family's from the Punjab. And I was the firstborn son after partition in 1947. So I was given extra privileges. You know, Punjabi boys are always given privileges, but if you're the firstborn after a major catastrophe,
Yep.
which is what I consider partition as,
Mm-hmm.
and we can delve into that later if you wish. So I had special privileges, but I was brought up in a Punjabi culture which basically said you got to strive and succeed. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what your abilities are, you got to go 100%. The other thing is that in Punjab itself, as kids, you were left to your own devices. There's no social media, clearly, in 1953 when I was born. We lived in a village of some thousands of people, not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Everybody knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You could wander around the village 3 times, 4 times the size of Soho. Nobody cared. Okay, they could always find you as a kid. Everybody knew everybody else. So I think the ability to run your own show, make your own fun, make your own friends, not be sort of pigeonholed in, got to do maths, got to do this, then ferried here, ferried there. You did everything yourself. So I think that spirit of just getting on and devising things, new games, whatever it was, probably overflowed into my teenage and adult life. So I think it's that. And the other thing is that my mother always said, "Don badmashia," which is actually a word beginning with B or haramzada, if you speak Punjabi. They're very naughty words. Only your mother could call you those. Nobody
viewers,
else.
please look up online on Google, please. I'm not going to repeat it.
Yeah. So because she said, you never do things that everybody else does. You're always slightly beyond the edge.
Interesting.
So I've always been slightly off the edge. That has got me into a lot of trouble here and there, but it's also enabled me, I think, to be creative in my own way.
Yeah, because you really have broken the traditional mold of being what a doctor should be.
Well, I mean, strangely enough, I didn't want to be a doctor, but as good Punjabi boy and the eldest, I just did as my father said. Otherwise, you got a good beating. Um, and
Back
in
in the
this instance, I probably would have been beaten up by the elders of the community because they
Mm.
all railroaded me one Sunday, December 1972, on a Sunday evening, pouring with rain, and they were like the mafia.
Mhm.
And I had decided to do geochemistry because I was interested in geology and chemistry, and I wanted to work for British Petroleum and see the world. And I'd been to British Petroleum in Sunbury, their offices, off my own bat, off my own accord. And they said, yes, we'd be happy to sponsor you for a year if you do a course, say, at Durham or somewhere like that. You can do a sandwich course. And I was very proud and went to my father to do this and suggest this. And he didn't actually for once beat me or scold me.
Mhm.
He said, a good idea, but you need to talk to the community. If we have time, I can tell you how they managed to hoodwink me into doing medicine. So medicine was certainly not my first choice. But in retrospect, my parents, my father in particular, it was clearly a great choice. I have really enjoyed my time in medicine and continue to do so. I still practice
Sure.
medicine. Um, and so really it was your parents that decided in those days what you did. And as the eldest boy in a Punjabi family, you did not go against what your parents said. That was pretty much unheard of.
Mm.
Unlike perhaps nowadays, where children are given a choice, which I think is good.
Yeah, but maybe too much choice.
Well, I think there's not enough discussion to and fro. I think kids probably, even myself, I was probably quite immature as a 17, 18-year-old, very immature. You think you know it all, but you don't. But in our culture, that was a done thing. It's changed, and I think there are good and bad parts to that, but maybe we can discuss that later
Sure.
if
So let's
necessary.
get back to the bolts and basics. So you have been a doctor for how many years?
Well, I qualified in 1978, and now we're in 2025, so over 45 years.
Yep. And what do you specialize in?
I'm a consultant ear, nose, and throat surgeon, ENT,
Hmm.
but within that specialty, we all have our subspecialty interests. So mine is obstructive sleep apnea, which is a condition that affects about 3.75 million people in England, and probably over 3.5 million do not know that they have it.
That's absolutely shocking. And it has, as we work together on this, you're doing some amazing work in Westminster. And I've got to say, the lectures and the talks you're giving, people are absolutely interested because it's such a dangerous condition, and it affects so many. And as you rightly say, it disproportionately affects a lot of people from the Black and Asian minority communities. What those figures like as compared to the mainstream figures?
Yeah, the prevalence of this obstructive sleep apnea, which is really you strangling yourself at night in the what we call the upper airway. That's the bit of your air system which is in your mouth, the back of your throat, and just beyond the windpipe. It's a strangulation of that. It's about 4 or 5% in the general population,
Okay.
but in the Black and Asian community, ethnic minorities, and other vulnerable groups, it's almost double. It's 8 to 10%.
Gosh. And why is that?
Well, there's a number of factors. One is genetics.
Mhm.
A lot of Black and Asian genetics are not good for Western lifestyle. So
Yeah.
the prevalence of obesity and the lifestyle, lack of exercise, diet, smoking, all these factors are impinge on this increased prevalence. So that's the main reason that there's a change of environment. So if you go back to Punjab of my early childhood, as my mother used to say, I do not understand what all this diabetes and hypertension is.
Yeah.
I have never heard of it.
Sugar.
She couldn't speak English, but I think if she spoke English, that's how she would
Should,
speak.
okay.
So excuse the accent. And she would say, in Punjab, all our men were like drakht, like trees, tall, thin, slim. Here they're all mote, fat. They sit on their backside. and they wonder why they have diabetes, and they wonder why they have heart disease, and they wonder why they have strokes. And it's because their diet is awful and they don't exercise. So if you had statistics from say India or say the Caribbean from 50 or 60 years ago, you would not have the incidence of diabetes and stroke and heart disease that you have now. And a lot of that is a consequence of obstructive sleep apnea. So I would recommend people who think they snore badly and struggle at night, usually the partner, will identify this, that you go and see your local GP.
And the symptoms of sleep apnea is what? It's actually stopping breathing.
Well, the cardinal one is snoring. You cannot have obstructive sleep apnea without snoring, essentially. And it's usually the partner. And in pre-menopause, it's usually the partner who tells wife or other partner nowadays will tell the individual that they snore badly. So badly sometimes that they have a bedroom divorce. They sleep in separate rooms.
Yes, they call it the sleep divorce, don't
sleep
they?
divorce, yeah, sleep divorce. And the frightening thing is that as you snore, you then suddenly stop snoring as air stops moving into your lungs, and then there's silence, and your partner's wondering whether you're dying. That really frightens them. If you get to that situation, they usually force the individual to go and see their general practitioner. So snoring is one. And generally, these people wake up exhausted. They could sleep for another hour. But if they did, they'd wake up exhausted again. So they never have decent sleep. And then they catch up during the day. And they will have micro sleeps when their brain is not active. For example, watching television, watching a boring program, going to a boring dinner party in the cinema.
And that's
or in
fine. But
if they're driving,
that's
then
super
it's a
dangerous.
big problem.
So people can nod off whilst driving.
Yeah, particularly on motorways where it's boring. Less so in built up urban areas, but if they're on a straight road, they nod off.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a dangerous condition. So that's my subspecialty interest.
Sure. And why are you so passionate about this?
Well, I think the reason I got into it is rather interesting. When I was a very young tenderfoot consultant, the first 6 months of my tenureship at Northwick Park Hospital in Harrow, one of my senior colleagues and friends, Gary Glover, put his arm around me, which was rather strange when I first started. And he said, "Ram, I think snoring and apnea is going to be the next big thing. I think you need to get an interest in it." And being quite young and easily influenced in those days, I said, "Of course, Mr. Glover." I used to call him Mr. Glover because he was my trainer. And he used to say, "Stop calling me Mr. Glover, I'm Gary." Anyway, so I took up snoring and apnea. I only found out years later he found it very tedious and boring. That's why he wanted me to do it.
I see. That's the
But
reason
anyway,
why.
it's been a great subspecialty interest to get into. And as I've mentioned earlier, it affects my community, which is the reason I'm passionate about it, but it affects more broadly the population.
And particularly women post-menopause.
Yeah, I mean, women on the whole don't suffer. It's a small percent, 1 in 10 before the peri and postmenopausal phase of their life. But as soon as they hit that phase of life, they catch up with men very quickly. And it's something about the hormonal tension in muscles and tissues that reduces. And in women, although they have snoring, it's probably not as bad as men, but they get the fatigue, they get the sort of mood changes, and a lot of that is similar to what you might get with the menopause. So many of these poor ladies are shunted around the menopausal clinic and not really getting any better. And they may spend a year or two or longer shunted around in these clinics before somebody twigs that these symptoms could be related to obstructive sleep apnea.
Gotcha. And you've had a very successful career as an ENT consultant. You're a surgeon as well. How many people have you operated on? Have you got a figure?
I have no idea. I mean, if I worked, say, 40 weeks of the year and operated on maybe 10, 15 patients a week, which is probably about average, you can work out how many it is. Some several thousands. The numbers are not important, although they are important as far as the government's concerned. We can debate that at another time. But I hope I've provided a high quality of care to my patients. And And, patients very kindly do occasionally write to their doctor, me included, and say that they've had a wonderful experience, which helps boost your self-worth.
Yeah.
It's not often you get that, but it's a two-way affair. We help patients. We don't expect anything in return, but when they do occasionally compliment you, it's very nice.
And so above and beyond, you've also helped, supported a number of artists, the rich and famous. Now, we don't want to have names because that's confidential, and we respect that. But you are called out privately to a number of some big names.
Yeah, I mean, besides obstructive sleep apnea, which I've harped on about quite considerably, my other big interest is voice disorders. And as you can imagine, people using their voices are, singers and actors. So I have seen a number of, high-profile singers and actors.
So ladies and gentlemen, he is the go-to person. So no, we're not going to go into names, but it's clear that you're a bit of an exceptional person in this field. And I understand you've been recently appointed to the Royal Household.
Well, I don't really want to talk about it too much, but I am a member of the Royal Medical Household.
Yeah.
I think
Incredible.
that's all I'd like to say.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Now, you've also trained doctors abroad, particularly in conflict zones. You've had some initiatives and programs, Gaza, Jordan, Lebanon. How did that international education work begin?
Well, 25, 30 years ago, I was looking at what general practitioners, primary care physicians, our colleagues were referring into ENT, into the secondary care sector. And a lot of it, I thought, probably could be handled in primary care. Now, in those days, we would lecture to general practitioners. I would do maybe half a dozen lectures a year to general practitioners on various aspects of ENT, but it didn't really diminish the number of referrals of conditions that probably could be treated in primary care. And I thought, well, if I add up all the hours that I have spent and then multiply that by 1,500, which is all the consultants around the country, that's tens and tens of thousands of hours spent educating our GPs with very little positive benefit in terms of referrals. So I sat with a colleague of mine, Professor Tony Narula, and on the back of a postage stamp, essentially, we said, why don't we create a postgraduate diploma in ENT for general practitioners?
Right.
Incredible. And so then Tony said to me, okay, Ram, devise it, which I did. And we had it approved by the Middlesex University and also the Royal College of General Practitioners at that time. And we started delivering it. I would hasten to add that certain institutions were not very happy about this. But as you know, any innovation usually has detractors. But we went ahead despite the sort of individuals who were trying to put a stop to it. So that was about 25 years ago we created this. And then we developed other specialty areas. We developed a postgraduate diploma in cardiology, for example, and then also one in diabetes and endocrinology and one in rheumatology. And then we developed one in family medicine or community medicine to train the equivalent of general practitioners. Although that wasn't primarily required here, what I did manage to do with a public health doctor friend of mine is that we could deliver this outside the UK, because community medicine is the cheapest way to maximize the benefit of healthcare across a population. Hospitals are okay, but they're not going to manage the huge numbers. And this particular friend of mine, Salman Rawaf, had contacts in the United Nations Works and Relief Agency. And we had some discussions with them. And in 2014/15, I led a team that went to Gaza to train, I think it was 25 doctors in Gaza on this program, which was part face-to-face, where we went out there, and part on an e-learning platform that we'd created 25 years ago. And subsequent to that, from 2014 through till 2023, until the latest conflict, we've trained some hundreds of doctors there. Excellent. In Gaza. So
Yeah.
the UNRWA team, United Nations Relief and Works Agency, looks after not just Gaza but also West Bank. So we used to go there.
Hmm.
Also, they looked after Palestinian refugees in Jordan, so we went there. They also looked after Palestinian refugees in Beirut, Lebanon, so we went there. They did ask me to go to Syria many years ago,
Yeah.
but my wife stopped that, which I can understand.
Well, she's the boss.
Yeah, she's
So this is like a real global impact, a legacy that you've
Well, I
set
mean,
up.
we have trained the doctors. We published in BMJ online journal what the impact of this particular form of delivery, because it was very cost effective, very cost effective. You don't take people out of their mainstream work and bring them to the UK. You have to backfill. So we delivered it locally with the team,
Yeah.
and then we had the online platform, and we had a very, very good price for them.
Sure.
So we were hoping that this would be extended more widely, but a lot of institutions very difficult to get hold of. WHO, we could never get to the right sort of people to say, look, we have a model, it's been assessed, it's been published, this might help individuals in other parts of the world. But hey ho, we've done what we've done.
And how many times have you traveled to the Middle East, in particular to?
Well, over roughly
Gaza?
10 years, probably 40 times, 3 or 4 times a year.
And what kept you motivated through such complex, sometimes dangerous environments?
What was the motivation? The motivation was, look, these people really needed help. They could not get out from Gaza. Their interaction with the international community was very poor. And, you know, I've spoken to my colleagues who went to Gaza and West Bank, and they indicated what was needed there, and I felt that we could help. So we negotiated a very special price for UNRWA so that these individuals could benefit from our courses. And it was heartwarming and rewarding to teach these people. They were so enthusiastic. I might say they're more enthusiastic than most of our trainee doctors here.
In UK.
So the enthusiasm was marvelous. They interacted, and we could see the tangible benefits that it produced in the quality of their delivery, plus also the raising of standards of patient health care. Yeah, I mean, that was the motivation. And it was fun to do. You go out as a team and then meet the team there, and we're all pulling in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, turning to business and medical education, what were some of the business challenges that you face in turning your kind of medical education into a sustainable model?
Well, with that first publication that I alluded to earlier on, it was actually quite difficult. And I went to my brother, who actually ran his own very successful business. He's about 2-3 years younger than I am.
Yeah.
And I said, look, we've got an idea of a sort of GP journal and to educate GPs.
And what year was this?
This was 25, 30 years ago. So whatever that is, 91, something like that. And I said, it's very difficult. I can't seem to get any of the publishers, Churchill, Livingstone, Harcourt Brace, Elsevier, to do this. And typical brother, because he's an entrepreneur, he said, why don't you just do it yourself?
Yeah.
And I said, well, how? He said, it's very easy. It's a thing called desktop publishing, he said.
Right, yes.
He said, why don't you buy this desktop publishing and you can just create your own journal and then just send it off to the printers. I have no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But my wife and I had a discussion. And yes, we created on desktop, one of the early desktop publishing applications, a magazine called Clinical Focus, which just about still runs, actually. I'm the editor of that. So that was the first one. And then we branched out into continuing medical education journals with a special feedback mechanism. So we did one in ENT, one in geriatric medicine, acute medicine, and we were the first organization to have articles in a publication which was sent by mail to those that subscribed, and in it was a series of questions based on the articles they had read, and there was a Mark Reader card an
Right.
optical mark reader card enclosed, and they had to mark their answers, which then came back to Reader Institute,
Yep.
and it went through an optical mark reader,
Yep.
which then assessed how well they'd done, and then they got continuing professional development points, credits, because that's the only way that you could get them in those days.
I
You had to have
see.
some feedback mechanism,
That's
but nobody
very
really knew how to do
very
it.
innovative way.
So
of getting
we had
feedback.
we had people feeding these cards into an optical mark reader, which a lot of people who are probably listening this podcast have never heard of.
Yeah.
But if you've ever been in hospital and they come round to you with the menu,
Yeah.
they sometimes get you to fill in the lozenge
Yes.
about what you want to eat, and that goes through a mark reader card, so
So-
they can order the right number of potatoes and
Right.
spinach and steaks that
And
you're
that
going
was
to
a
eat.
very successful medical education publishing company.
Well, yeah, I mean, it continues to date. We have a handful of postgrad medical education publications. We have one for the Society for Acute Medicine, for example, that we run. Yeah, so that continues.
So the question is were you ever met with resistance for being too entrepreneurial in a clinical world?
Well, there are battles always, I'm afraid. If you're going to innovate, there are going to be detractors. And I would say to you that the CME journal in ENT and head and neck surgery, I almost got slayed by my senior members of the fraternity because I hadn't asked them whether I could publish it. And I remember myself and my co-editor of the time, Professor Narula, and I remember saying to Georgina, my wife, that this is what's happening. And we were told to pull the plug on the journal, and I refused. I said, if it's going to compete with the present journal, and it isn't competing with it because we're doing different things, then that means the present journal is not good enough. But I think there's room for both.
Wow.
And
So you really stuck to your guns.
Yeah, absolutely. And furthermore, when we set up the postgraduate diploma in ENT for GPs, we also almost got slayed because I was told by the then president, who shall remain nameless, that I'm giving away the secrets of ENT to general practitioners, and I must not do that. And I then retorted with, we're not Freemasons. Everybody decries that general practitioners not sending appropriate referrals to the hospital. Here is a mechanism to try and improve that. And you say we can't do it. I said, I'm going to do it, period.
You really are a pioneer. You're breaking the mold, aren't you? Let's move to art and healing. Along with your family and your wife, you set up a gallery in Soho, the Zari Gallery, where you're supporting young artists. I mean, tell me about this gallery and why did you open a gallery in Soho?
I'm going to be completely upfront on this. This is really my wife, Georgina's baby. Yeah. She is very creative, unlike me. I can't even draw a stick insect or a stick man, let alone art, and I find it very difficult to appreciate art, although I'm improving as I get older. So Georgina's very, very creative, and she wanted to set up an art gallery. She was involved with doctors a lot, and she said, well, they can be quite boring. I want to do something where I'm not always talking to doctors.
Yeah.
And she set up this gallery now 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Zari, Z-A-R-I, for those that are interested. And it's based in Soho, just off Oxford Street. And yes, her role, because she's originally an immigrant, but's been here for 40, 50 years plus, she was very keen on getting young, new artists a platform, an opportunity to display their wares. We have some established artists as well, not only from this country, but from other countries, from Africa, from Middle East, from the Caribbean. And she's devised a number of prizes, photographic prizes as well. We have a permanent display of art in the gallery. She's linked up with the Liverpool University Salford section of it to also develop the artistic talents of some of their students. So Zari Gallery look at 2 or 3 of their top students every year and then give them an opportunity to display their wares here in London and give them a foothold into the commercial world. And also teach them how to make a living out of their art.
That's super important.
Yeah. So there are many artists who, living from hand to mouth. But, there's a way of trying to make your art succeed and make a very good living out of it. So that's what she promotes.
You and your wife are a bit of a formidable power couple.
She is more than I am. I'm the women.
You're being modest. No, you're there. Now, 2 words. Manuka honey. Why have you set up this business, this wellness business? What drew you to it? What are the benefits of this particular type of honey, Manuka? And is this a wellness project? Is this a cultural connection? And how do you see these products kind of like fit into healthcare and preventive medicine?
Well, I mean, it's, again, most of life is stumbling into things, and I've rather stumbled into this.
Yeah.
I have a cousin in Sydney, Australia, who's very entrepreneurial. He runs a very successful poster and display type business throughout Australia. And he just came to me one day and said, I've got an opportunity to sell Manuka honey. Do you want to come in on it? It was, yeah, I said, okay, yeah, it sounds interesting. What help do you need? He said, I need help. I said, well, of course, you're a cousin. I'll help.
Yeah, but did you do the due diligence, the research?
Yeah. Well, of course, I hadn't really heard about Manuka honey. I buy the liquid stuff, and I don't want to malign any honeys, so I won't name any, but the usual liquid honeys that you buy for 2 and 6pence, in new money, that's £1. Which are just really pure sugar. They have very little health and well-being element to it. But when I investigated Manuka honey, and our brand is called Bee Santé, B-E-E, as a play on the word bumblebee, and Santé, which is French for health, so be healthy, basically, Bee Santé. When I researched it, it was quite clear that Manuka honey has this huge health and wellness benefit related to its MGO value. Methyl glyoxal.
Okay.
And that value it's very good antibacterial for simple sore throats. It's absolutely excellent. You don't need antibiotics. It'll save antibiotic resistance, for example, and save allergies to antibiotics. That's number one. Number two, it's antiviral, antifungal. It's got beautiful healing properties. So if you have a wound, you put honey on it. So, for example, diabetic ulcers, which some diabetics get on their legs. If you have a Manuka honey impregnated dressing, the healing process is so much quicker. And that's a dual effect. One is it gets rid of the bacteria that are preventing the healing. And secondly, it promotes relining, reepithelialization. And you can literally see the ulcer getting smaller and smaller. And it's the same in mouth ulcers. If you have mouth ulcers, Manuka honey is excellent. It's great for gingivitis, for example. Don't tell the dentist because they'll get annoyed. But for gingivitis, that's really a bacterial infection of your gums, very unpleasant. And you will find that Manuka honey, it changes the bacteria because the sugars in Manuka honey are taken up by the good bacteria that we all have in our mouths and not by the bad bacteria. So the good bacteria overwhelm the bad bacteria and gingivitis is cured. So there's lots and lots of benefits. Women use it for small blemishes on their face, so it's used as a facial. So the idea of the Manuka honey, although it's, if you like, a commercial enterprise, the reason I'm in it is it's got this health and wellness element. And we're really promoting the honey not as a sugar substitute, far from it. I mean, it clearly has sugar in it, but it has lots of other ingredients that give it these additional health and wellness properties.
Sure. And there are different levels.
Yeah, the MGO values, they can go from 30, and that jar might cost you £10-15 for a 250 gram, but you can go up to 2,100 MGO, which will probably retail 250 grams for about £6,000. I'm not saying that you need that.
This is like liquid gold.
It is. It's almost liquid gold, but it's limited in supply.
Yeah.
It is limited in supply. It's only available. The biggest farms are in Australia, where our honey comes from, and there's farms in New Zealand as well, but less acreage there, much less acreage.
Sure. And today's social media world, how are you marketing this?
Well, this has been a very steep learning curve. I'm nearly 72, so social media.
You don't look it. You're 41.
Social media is something completely new to me.
Mm.
So there's a team. My son Simran's involved. My wife again, Georgina, is involved, and we've got a small team that's promoting it. We sell it only online at the moment, but we're try and get it out to retailers and pharmacies. But as I say, we want to promote it as a health and wellness product, not as a sugar substitute.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You've done so much across so many disciplines. I mean, what's your definition of success?
Definition of success? That's a very, very tricky one, because I don't think of success. I think of challenges. So I suppose success is you have an idea, and you go for it, despite all the obstacles, and I've mentioned some of them earlier on, that you try and make it succeed. So one kind person did once say to me that, Ram, you're the sort of person that I love to work with, because you have an idea, and I think I agree with it, and then you go and do it. Whereas I just stand on the sidelines, having lots of ideas and never seeing them through. So I think success for me is I don't give up that easy. Okay?
You're very resolute. You're very tenacious. You're very. You have audacity, don't you? You have this resilience.
Well, there's a certain amount of that, and I think that's partly from the heritage, and partly I think sport was one of the big things that probably gave me this. I played football at serious level. I used to play for the borough, not just the school, and then I played a lot of rugby, where you've got teamwork. And rugby, you've got to look after yourself and look after your mates.
Which position in rugby?
I played scrum half or fly half.
Okay.
That was my main position, scrum half, fly half. So I think those sorts of qualities which you gain as you in your teenage life and a little bit older, I think they overspill. I was never one for individual sports, although I play tennis and I play really bad golf. Latterly, individual sports weren't really the ones that I got into very much. So although I'm individualistic, I don't mind working in teams. I realize that I need good people around me to succeed. But I do have the ability to persuade people, for whatever reason, that what I'm doing is probably going to be beneficial to a third party themselves and possibly to me.
Sure. So you have that kind of sales skill set.
I thought you were going to say sales pitch. Doesn't sound very nice. No, well, if it's a good idea, I think I would run with it. And I generally try and help people succeed. I want whatever I do for people to help me to succeed. So it works both ways, to be honest with you. I do spend a lot of my time helping others.
You do. I've seen you at first hand. I've seen you go around in places of faith, Gurdwaras, Mandirs, where you give out advice on medical advice on ENT. And you were recently at the Shepherd's Bush Gurdwara in Shepherd's Bush, near Notting Hill, where you spoke to about over 40 people. And that was impressive to see that you were considerate, you were taking time, and you were really making an impact with people. And it was really good to see that passion that came through. So I absolutely agree that you do take time, you do care about people.
That's kind of you. I try.
To your younger self, what would you say in business? What business advice would you give?
Business advice: have a passion, something you enjoy. It's not always going to make you oodles of money. Stuff I've done hasn't made me oodles of money, but that's not the point. I have a comfortable living. I'm comfortable. And sometimes,
but you've had failures in business.
Oh yeah, there's lots of failures. I mean, you can't imagine the number of failures, but that doesn't put me off.
No. Yeah.
And usually the failures are probably my fault to a large degree. Made bad decisions. We do,
that happens in business. And that's the thing. You make good decisions in business, you make bad decisions, you just live with it. You just move on. You shrug your shoulders and say, you know what? It's okay. It's business.
There are missed opportunities, but look, I think you got to work hard. There's absolutely no substitute for working hard. I mean, you might get lucky if you work in the city or somewhere and make tens of millions of pounds through a deal. But that's going to be 0.001% of the population. And although the news and TikTok and social media are full of this, it ain't going to happen to the vast majority of us.
Success is never overnight. You're right.
It is never overnight. It's a marathon. So nice and easy, and it's not going to happen. It's not a sprint. Life is not a sprint. Business is not a sprint. Okay. So that would be my advice. Accept failure, but learn from it. And I never call it failure. It's just, how could have I done things better? What were the decisions I should have made, or earlier, or made differently? Where should have I gone for advice? So it's not failure. It's what didn't I do right, which meant that this didn't succeed, as opposed to failed.
I really like that. That's a great mindset. Because, we could be kind to ourselves, and sometimes in life we will get curveballs, whether it's customers, whether it's the industry, it's government regulation, or it could be just the weather. Lots of rain can turn away business away, or if it's too sunny, it can turn business away, particularly in hospitality or when you have a stall out in the open. What would you say to the new generation who are listening now, the snowflake generation, the new generation? What do you say to them? What advice would you give?
Advice to the new generation?
Business advice.
Yeah, business advice. Well, look, I think you've got to work. Like, I worked in medicine, and then I did something within medicine that was entrepreneurial, and then you just go where your passion is. So you've got to have some sort of skill set or some sort of idea. So, for instance, my brother, he did lots of jobs before he fell into heating, ventilation, air conditioning units. So for about 6 or 7 years, he was working in many, many types of industries, allied to what he eventually did. And then you go out on your own. So you've got to develop some sort of skill set. It could be a manual skill set. It could be a mental skill set. It could be an academic skill set. You've got to develop that. And then you look at opportunities that might arise that help you create a business within that skill set that you've got. The worst thing is to go in something that you do not know. And I did have a friend of mine, very good friend, who ups from the UK and went to the States in a completely different business to what he had here. Very successful business here. And I warned him. I said, why don't you go there and do it for a year or two before you pack your bags? And sadly, he failed. He did fail, unfortunately. Very sad. So I would say, get interested in everything and everything. I read a lot, for example. I have 1 or 2 books on the go all the time. Read a lot, be open to new ideas, but always think that whatever you're doing, try and do your best in it. Even if it's like me trying to play golf very badly, I try and do my best in it and try and pick up a book here or look at a YouTube video on how I can improve. It's not the be all and end all of what I do, but it's the same in business. Okay. So always look around for what more you can learn, and also learn from those around you. Whenever you think nobody's ever been here, this must be terrible, you can bet your bottom dollar that in the last 10 years of human existence, somebody has been where you think nobody's ever been.
Who's been your guru or godfather? So Bernard here in Covent Garden is seen as the Don of Covent Garden. I'm based at Seven Dials. I'm the Don of Seven Dials. But who was your Don? Who was your kind of like, who would you approach for advice? Someone, the elders, or did you just?
Well, I mean, elders, yes, but I'm old now, so there are not many elders older than me. That's a big problem. They come to me for advice now. So life has gone through a 180-degree turn.
But back in the day,
in the day, well, I think my wife really.
Oh, that's sweet.
Not only sweet, it's the reality. I mean, she has very determined, very fixed, does not get deflected very easily, and can sum up and assess situations very, very quickly. So I'm grateful to her. We don't always agree, but she usually wins. But which is fair enough. I'm easy on that.
So it's true, the old maxim behind every successful businessman is a even more successful woman.
Well, it's a woman. Yeah, I think that in my case, it's certainly true.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we would love to have your wife Georgina in for a podcast interview. It'd be nice to see how she ticks and the success of the gallery here in Soho. You're incredible, Professor Ram. We could go on and on and on, particularly about the work you do around sleep apnea, and particularly the last 2 years, you actually have set up a cross-party APPG, an all-parliamentary political group, which is cross-party, raising awareness of sleep apnea. What's your view on sleep apnea? I mean, as compared to the US and here in the UK, why people not understanding about this very serious condition?
Well, this is a public awareness issue, okay? Because in the main, men suffer and they snore, and it's treated a bit like a joke. I remember doing the 3 Peaks walk within 24 hours. I managed 23 hours, 55 minutes just within the 24 hours. And on the night of the 3rd peak, which was Snowdonia, I was in a dormitory with, half a dozen of the guys. And there were 2 or 3 dormitories. I was in a dormitory with 6. And you could hear the cacophony of snoring. It was terrible. And I'm sure some of those guys who were older than me at the time had obstructive sleep apnea. So I think it's treated as a joke. What people are not aware of is that the downstream complications of obstructive sleep apnea are dire. Heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, loss of libido, erectile dysfunction, fatigue, mood changes,
memory fog, brain fog,
can't do numbers, depression because they can't work properly.
Yeah.
And these are endpoints of obstructive sleep apnea. And what happens? We're treating the endpoints. We should be treating upstream. We should be treating upstream the obstructive sleep apnea. So the idea of the all-party parliamentary group is try and get a cross-party consensus on obstructive sleep apnea, and then present a policy document, which I hope we will do in the very near future, to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, and indicate what the issues are, because I don't think they're aware of it. Well, they're not aware of it. That is certain. But more importantly, what is the solution? Because the solution will improve individuals' lives. And more importantly, as far as politicians are concerned, it's likely to save them several billions of pounds in healthcare costs,
which we so need
and
to
improve productivity in those in whom the obstructive sleep apnea has been addressed.
And what is the solution?
Well, it depends a little bit on the severity. So lifestyle changes may work for a very small number, less than 1%. You know how difficult it is to change lifestyle? It's a bit like Oscar Wilde and his smoking. He said, it's easy to give up smoking. I've done it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And that's lifestyle changes. It's easy. I've done it hundreds of times. Lifestyle changes are very, very difficult. Okay. But the problem with obstructive sleep apnea is unless you treat the obstructive sleep apnea, you cannot improve the physical activity. Okay. You can't improve the moods unless you deal with the obstructive sleep apnea. And so lifestyle is a potential solution in a very small percentage of people who suffer this condition. The other 2 main ways of dealing with it is CPAP, which is continuous positive airway pressure, which is approved by NICE, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence. It depends on the exact severity of the obstructive sleep apnea, but that means wearing a mask over your mouth or mouth and nose.
Like Darth Vader.
Well, it is, but it dramatically, absolutely dramatically turns around people's lives. You should do a podcast maybe of somebody who suffered obstructive sleep apnea and let them tell you how it's not only improved their life, but those around them, their partners, their family, their work, their healthcare issues, how it's improved them. So CPAP is one, but it's almost like turning a switch on or off. If you don't use the CPAP, you're terrible. If you use it, you're like Superman or Superwoman. A second best choice in many of these is what we call a mandibular advancement device. MAD, we call it, MAD. And that's a little bit like a rugby player's mouth guard, and it brings the lower jaw, to which your tongue is attached, slightly forward at night by 1 millimeter or 2 to try and open up that airway. But that's only useful in very specific types of individuals with obstructive sleep apnea.
Okay. And can I ask about this new fad about taping? It's going across America here, where at night you just tape your lips.
Yeah, absolutely useless. I don't know. Maybe people who sell tape have probably promoted that, but it's not going to affect your airway, which is 6 centimeters away from your mouth. Sure. It's not going to alter any of that.
Yeah. And in terms of people do breathe through their mouth, not through their nose, what advice would you give?
Well, the natural obligation in humans is to breathe through their nose. So as a newborn, if your airways in your nose are not patent, unless somebody opens your mouth to breathe, you will die. Okay? And if kids get colds, you see what a struggle they have because they haven't learned to open their mouth to breathe. So the natural obligation in humans is to breathe through the nose. Okay? And opening the mouth to breathe, like when you have a cold, is a learned exercise. Humans learn it fairly quickly, but some find it very difficult, even adults. The moment their nose is blocked, they just panic. They completely panic. Mouth breathing may be due to issues in your nose. This is unrelated to obstructive sleep apnea. If you've got polyps or you've got allergic rhinitis like hay fever, or you've got polyps which can sometimes be associated with hay fever and allergic nose, then you open your mouth to breathe. And also, I have a lot of people who say, when I exercise, I can't get enough air through my nose. Well, your nose is not designed to give you sufficient airflow when you're exercising. You have to open your mouth. It's the done thing. So I have lots of athletes who say, why can't I breathe through my nose only? I have to open my mouth. I said, well, that's normal. So let's get rid of that myth. When you exercise, to get enough puff and oxygen to your system, you have to open your mouth. So you breathe through your nose and your mouth. Yeah.
Well, look, Professor Ramdillon, I have really enjoyed talking to you. I'd love to have you back and ask you questions about sleep, earaches, nose issues, throats. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming, sharing your wisdom, your kind of business and entrepreneurial skill. You are truly remarkable and exceptional in that you have this beautiful range of disciplines, and we would love to have you back if you want to come back. I hope you've enjoyed today's interview. So that was Professor Ramdillon, a man whose life reminds us that true impact comes when we cross boundaries with courage and clarity, whether it's reimagining education, launching a gallery, or bottling honey with purpose. I think Ram Dillon's story is a masterclass in purposeful reinvention. And if this episode stirred your curiosity, please share it, drop us a review, subscribe for more. And we're having some great conversations here at Bern Speakeasy. Until next time, I'm Mumret. Goodbye.
Thank you.